Blah, y'all already know what it is. Your boy Yaakov, what it do? The outlet to reality, the holdest podcast in Vegas and Chicago. What up? This is the place where you want to hide from your drama or maybe hide from your baby mama. Just kidding. Y si tú quieres cambiar tu vida, if you want to change your life, then subscribe. Ching. And by the way, guys, I just published a book on Amazon. It's called Shabbat in Chicago. It's about an audacious single mom who opens her heart and home to five adopted kids while embracing her Latino culture while being Jewish. And today we have a very special guest who is one of the best authors. Give it up for the one and only Michelle. Woo!
Hey, how you doing out there?
I love it. I love it. Thank you. Thank you for being on the show. It means so much to have you, Michelle. I want to give like a little, insight with the fans, let them know how we met. So basically, this was in Chicago and Bloomingdale. We went to this nice restaurant, Capone's Pizzeria, and it was nice. Our publisher actually got us together, and it was so nice. We got to share ideas, learn from each other, and right away. And it was funny because Dolly, our publisher, she gave me the choice where to sit. I could have said to the left or to the right, and I chose to sit with Michelle because I felt like I felt like there was a lot
Those
of
good
good
vibes.
energy. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
good
just I
energy.
just felt I just
Exactly.
felt. And I sat next to her, and the other Michelle was next to me too, and Maribel, and it was so nice that we got along. And right away, I was like, "Yo, this is good people right here." And just the fact you're so spiritual, and I felt like we had a lot in common. You invited me to the radio show, 105 or 105.7 FM. That was fire. So yeah, we have so much like now I feel like I know you for a long time. And what about you? If you could take us, what was your first impression when we first met?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on your show. I was absolutely honored to be asked, and it feels good. Like I said, I met a fellow author, a brother. I'm like, this guy has good. It was good energy all around. I agree 100% with that. It was very good energy. First impressions, I was like, wow, just from all of your accomplishments and all of the things that you've done, and reading your book just from, the first night I kind of read a couple of pages and then continuing to read. Excellent writer, you guys. Wonderful story. I connected with you. I connected with your mom. I was just like, wow, because hospitality runs in our blood. And it was just amazing. It was just, I really enjoyed myself. And not to mention the food was delicious. So food is your friend. It's been mine for a long time. So
Oh
but we
man.
had a good time, good conversation, and a good vibe. So very
Wow.
appreciative.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, that means a lot. And I do want you, tonight's about you. If you could share too, like, tell us a little bit like where you grew up in, any memories you have in your childhood that maybe your fans don't know. If you can spill the beans, maybe not the cheese, but I mean a lot.
Yeah, sure. I originally my mother's originally from Freeport. I grew up in Salinas, California, and that was everything. My life was there. My best friend, my oldest friend from kindergarten, she's Latina and African American, and we grew up on Donna Circle right there in Salinas. And it was an amazing journey because it gave me my introduction into multiculturalism. I think I lived in the most multicultural neighborhood on the planet. It was my world. I lived next to a Filipino family, across the street from a Spanish family, down the street from a German family, across the street, just two houses up from a Filipino family. It was just everybody was there. It was amazing. I grew up with different food. I grew up with different cultural attitudes, and I just loved history and culture of different peoples. It was just amazing to me. And to be able to bring that love of people and love of culture from Salinas to Freeport was culture shock because I went from having a multicultural friendship to having all African American people in my life and being very much in a predominantly white area. So it was new, it was different, but it still kept me who I am. And I just love people. I still love people. But that was my start, my upbringing, my background.
Wow.
And my parents are still the same amazing people that they are. Yes, they're aging and getting older, but it was amazing to be around all those mixtures of people and to learn from them. So I still remember Mrs. Peterowski's butter cookies, and she's very, very German. I still remember Mrs. Salinas. She lived across the street, her empanadas. Oh my gosh. And then my she was my sister's godmother. Her name is Crucita. I remember her chili verde. So I have all of that in my background. And that's me growing up. A very, very multicultural background. Yes, predominantly African American, but very multicultural.
I love it. I love it. That's beautiful. Yeah. I gotta say, when I went to Cali, one thing that I remember, the town I was at, I was like Eagle something. I forgot the area, but I was in some place in Cali, and like 6 in the morning, I see this Mexican guy pushing the cart and saying tamales, and he was just
Oh,
screaming, and I was like, "Yo, this feels like Mexico." Because if you go to Mexico in the small towns, that's what they do. Like they'll wake you up five
yes.
in the morning. You won't need no rooster. They'll wake you up, and I was like, "Yo, I feel like home." And it's definitely, I agree with you. I think that it's very, very nice, and you have different type of food in Cali. I love that.
Mm,
And,
yeah.
and please, if you could tell us too, like, what made you get into writing and wanting to create this book?
Okay. Um, Wanting to get into writing, I was in college and I had written my very first college term paper, and I had a teacher, there was no marks on it. There were no marks on my paper at all. And I opened it up and there was an A there. And I looked at that and I was like, whoa. And I went to him, I said, wow. He said, you wrote it. Don't you believe it? I was like, yeah. And my college professor said, you are an excellent writer. You're an excellent writer. I was like, that's the first A I had ever received in college. And I was in graduate school. Don't get me wrong, I did some good work, but I had never received an A. And after that, I really thrived. It was a surprise to me. I just kind of fell into it and I started writing. I kept a journal. And my college roommate told me, you really should write down some of the stuff that you have. And so I got a couple things in the works during that time, never finished anything. But the book I wrote is called I Remember. And it's a memoir about my late husband. He passed away, and I had two very young children at the time. And I wanted them to remember him as wonderful as he was. He was very, very talented. Don't get me wrong, he had his flaws. And the disease that took him was polymyositis, which is chronic inflammation of all of the major muscles, um, the heart, the liver, the lungs. And dealing with that, the way that they dealt with it was kind of like a cancer treatment. So we went through that for 1 full year before um, his organs gave out and he passed away. But I wanted them to remember all of the things that I loved about him. I remember he could talk. I remember his love of art and his love of his children and his family and drawing and all of those special things that made him who he was. And I tried to put that in this memoir. So, but that's what got me started writing. First, again, the first A I received in college, and then keeping a journal, and then wanting to share the love of my life with my children and how wonderful he was. So,
Wow. That's amazing. And it had to be hard because I bet because he was, someone you saw every day waking up, and you build so much rapport or more, a lot of memories with him. And if you can explain to us too, how did you had the strength to write it down? Because you must have had like some Kleenex on the side, or just taking a little break. Like, hey, let me take a walk. What got you to keep going?
Um, Two women in my life. One is my mother, and the other one was Dolly. Both of them told me, because I couldn't do it. It had been 6 years after he passed before I was actually able to write it down. And my mother told me I needed to forgive myself for surviving, for living. He lost his battle with his disease, and I couldn't come to grips with things. I had to keep going because my children were young. But working through that with counseling, definitely recommend that. In our culture and community, not a lot of people talk about your mental health. And I needed to do that for not only myself, but for my children. We went through grief counseling and taking care of business that way, having to deal with my emotions and then understanding where they were coming from helped a great deal. And being able to write that down. And then again, when I met Dolly and I started a strong friendship, like right off the bat. We were in a different company together, which is no longer in existence. But through that friendship and her um, gentle nudges, I was able to, again, forgive myself for living, which is exactly what my mother had told me 2 years prior to my wanting to, or being told to, write this down. She says, you got to share your story. If you don't do it for anyone, do it for your boys. And I did. And she said, but we started out with, writing to heal. And that's what I did.
Wow. It's beautiful. I love that your mom and Dolly literally, they listened to you, they supported you, they, gave you that kind of like that family that you needed
Mhm.
to hold on, and you got this. So I think it's beautiful, and I'm really for mental health too. When I was little, you know, I always told my mom that, I need a psychologist or a psychiatrist, whatever. I said, Mom, I need somebody to talk to because I felt like I have a lot of anger. And I remember, like you were saying, how, black and brown, we were taught, oh, just don't worry about it. It's just a thought.
Yeah,
Keep
you'll be
going.
fine. Pray about it. And see,
Right.
that's wonderful. But God also gave us wisdom to go to the people who can help us unravel all of that stuff.
Right. Right.
Not that we can't depend on him. We 100% can, but he gave us the tools to use. And we don't talk about that in our culture much. So I'm glad it's coming out more. Sorry, I didn't mean
Yeah.
to interrupt you, but
No, you're
that's
good.
this is true. We don't talk about mental health, and it's really prevalent in our communities. So,
Right. Because if not, we feel trapped. It builds up, and then we can explode. Like we could go range and get this fire. And uh they always say when you're angry, that's when you make the most mistake, because you're going by emotion, you're not going by logic or thinking. And
mhm,
a lot of these, especially young people today in schools, you know they don't get the help they need because their parents don't approve it. So if their parents are like, "No, you're good, son or daughter, or whoever.
mhm,
I don't think you need a psychiatrist. You're fine. Just take a walk."
mhm,
It's not as that simple. Everyone has a different battle. Not everyone has the same prescription, the same
mhm,
struggle. So I think that's why it's so important for mental health. But I do want to say too, right? you know you accomplishing this book, which is amazing. What did your kids, were they like, what what did your kids tell you after you finish it? Like when they read it, what did they tell you? Like, Mom, I gotta tell you this. Like, what was their reaction?
It was kind of subdued, but they're like, Mom, I'm really proud of you. And thank you for helping us to remember the things that we loved about our dad. My oldest son is 20 now. And I asked him, have you actually read the book? He's like, yeah. So I was like, okay. I just wanted to, to know that you had at least read it once. You don't have to read it 3 or 4 times. I just wanted to make sure that you read it. And my youngest was 9 at the time. Excuse me. And they were both like, wow, because I included pictures from his drawing and his artwork. He had what was called Griggsville Graphics, his graphic company, and he had his own logos and things. And we had started a graphic novel together, and we had started some things. And he has this beautiful picture called The Finger Roll that I just absolutely love. I have the original. It's not a lithograph or anything, but it's the original picture, and it was just a wonderful thing for me to share. And I put some of those things in there. And my eldest son, they both are very artistic, just like their father. And having those pieces of him with them were something that they really appreciated.
Wow. That's beautiful. I think that, knowing that your son read it and, to hear him say that, like, it's so, I bet it moved your heart. Like, you're like,
It
oh
did.
man,
It
I
really
needed that,
did. It did.
right? Because I feel like, your kids right now, you're their big role model. You're their big supporter. And I think you're doing a great job. You're doing a lot of good things. I've only heard good things about your kids. When you were talking, I was like, man, she's doing something right. Because,
Thank you.
so that's good. That's good. I
I hope
think,
so.
right. No, but I'm really proud of you. I'm so happy, and I do want to ask you something too. Like, this is a little different, but if you can share too, how did you get connected to the radio station 105.7?
Now that's an interesting story. It's kind of funny, but I was asked to be a guest on a show that they had previously. And I apologize, I can't remember the name of the show, but these wonderful women and young men were uh, talking to people about Freeport. And I was asked to come on the show, and we had a really good time. And the station manager, who's now my general manager, had asked me several times, Michelle, I need you to come on the show. I need you to. And then when I did, I was like, okay, great. I came on. And then another guest that they had asked me to come on. So I'd been on a couple times. And I was asked to co-host a show called Freeport Talks the Soil. And that particular co-host, I was the co-host. And the host of the show stopped coming one Thursday evening. He called me and said, sis, you're on your own. I was like, what? Okay. And that became, for like a month, it was a pattern. Every other week, I was by myself. And I was like, okay, we got to figure out what's going on. And the last time he texted me, it was 30 minutes before the show started. I'm not going to make it. You're on your own. I was like, what the heck are we going to talk about? And so my general manager and I just had a really good conversation. It was kind of off the cuff. And he said, that's it. He said, we're going to go with this and we're going to call it. I said, what are we going to call it? We're going to call it Talking with Michelle, because that's what we're doing. So now it's Talking with Michelle, and I've been there. I'm starting my 3rd year. So
Wow.
yeah, I was kind of like left holding the proverbial bag, so to speak. But I was like, well, okay. And I didn't want to let people down, because a lot of people had started listening to our show, Freeport Talks the Soil. He's working on a documentary. And I understood, but I was just like, for real. So it just took off from where it was, and I was able to get people to come on the show, and our subject matter was very good. I'm all about teachers, all about our school district, uplifting our administration and thing, because the school I worked in at the time, the middle school, as well as the school I'm at now, Carl Sandburg, had some really bad vibes and bad reputations, and parents had said some very discouraging things about us. And I'm like, I've worked in this district going on 8 years now, and it has been amazing. We work very hard, and all of your children ain't angels, but we come back every day. We come back every day. So just being able to do that and to make sure that I told our side of the story from the administrative perspective. I've had administrators on, I've had teachers on, and I love what I do now. So I was kind of every week I'm nervous, but I'm excited about being there. So
Wow, that's a beautiful story. It's amazing
thank you.
how God puts the pieces together because look at that. He was preparing you to run the show. Look at that. Like you coming thinking you got your co-host, and next you know he's canceling, but God's preparing you for that role. He was
Mhm.
like, let me get her ready. And he did. And look at you. You the spotlight now. Now you making moves. So I think it's amazing. It shows you in life how, you know, we have to be grateful. You know,
Mm,
I always say when you pray and you pray for patience, God tests you with patience. He said, okay, you want patience? Here's a situation. You got somebody yelling at you, you know, and you gotta
oh
be
goodness.
and guys like you said you praying for patience. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? You know what I'm saying? Let me see you can do it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now I changed my prayer. I said, all right, God, let me change it up. You know what I'm saying? Let me change it up. Because
Yeah,
I ain't
remember
ready.
you do get what you pray for.
Yeah, right. I said, God, give me a break. Give me a break. Let me change it up. Let me change it up. You know, let me get that and let me get that whopper. You know what I'm saying? Let me get that whopper. You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
But
sir.
right. So
Wow.
it's very powerful. I always say that, you know, prayer is our biggest spiritual weapon
Mhm,
that could really help us. Like I think that when you're going through hardship, when you're sad, um, you know, I take time to be in my room and just have quietness, and
mhm.
that's the time I'm real with God. I'm talking to him and I'm letting it out because I know he won't judge me. I know he'll listen, and you
Yeah.
just need it, you know? That's like
Yes.
my meditation. And what about you? What does when you pray, right? You know,
Mhm.
I know you're a spiritual person. How do you feel and you know what it means to you?
It's everything. When I have to take the time to stop, and I've had to over the last couple of years because I've untethered myself from my church. There were some circumstances and some very personal issues where our church was split, and we, my entire family, who were founders in this church, chose to step back. So I've had to find myself in the Lord and in God without those four walls, that building, that role I played in that experience. So it's everything. When I need to remember who I am, and I have a poster that says, remember your name. And my name is Michelle, which means who is like the Lord. And I had to be reminded of those things. You do have the Lord in at your, you know, at your back, Michelle. Don't forget. And I had to remember those things. But when I do meditate, I do sit quietly. I have to because there's so much noise going on all around me, from work to school to children to family to taking care of my boys, taking care of my parents, being a good sister, being a good teacher, all of those things that make me who I am. I have to pray. I have to stop and thank God, first of all, for waking me up in the morning. It starts with gratitude for me, even if it's just, Lord, ooh, I can move my hands. Some mornings I'm up and so stiff. I thank God I can feel the stiffness. I'm still alive. I'm still here. But it starts with gratitude and then working my way into the needs of others and the needs of our community, and then bringing it back to family. just being still and sometimes not saying nothing. I'll just be like, Lord, I just need to sit still with you. Just you don't have to, let me know something is going. I'm able to do that. And I'm grateful that I was not so much, well, I was trained. It says in the word, train up a child in the way that he should go. And when he's old, he won't depart. And I thank God for believing in his word and being able to do that, which is to sit still and to take the time to pray and to take the time to write down my prayers. Those things that journaling does for me, all of those things happen with prayer too. But I also have a morning routine where first thing I do before my feet hit the ground is thank you, Lord. I made the wake up list, that wake up call. And then I like to read my utmost for his highest. And I have a different particular Bible study. This one I'm doing now is it's just like a 2-minute read in scripture. And it is Rick Warren's daily devotion. And I love just the little bit, the snippets that he gives me from that. And so just keeping those things daily, because some days as a sixth grade English teacher can be rough. Woo! But I mean, all throughout the day, it's everything. It really is.
Um, no, that's
Talking to God about, Lord, this child is getting on my nerves. Lord, this parent is trying to cuss me out over their child doing this, that, and the third. Administration is being crazy. What is going on? So I'm just just anchored in prayer.
oh wow. No, that's beautiful. I think that you hit something really strong where you could do prayer anywhere. You don't
Mhm,
need to be at a specific place, right, of worship. If you're at the moment where you need to, like you say, stay still
mhm.
and leave it to God. Because there's been moments, I'm not gonna lie. I think this year I hit rock bottom a few times, and I was like, man, God, I really don't know what's gonna happen to me. I don't know if I'm gonna have, um, if I'm gonna have a job. There's a lot of things
Yeah,
that is normal when you get older. You have worries, right?
yeah.
And I have to remember that, when you pray, you got to say like, God protect me from my enemies, right?
Mhm,
Because they could come anywhere,
mhm.
and it's very important. And I've seen time and time where God has shown mercy. He was there for me, and He showed me plenty of time that He was always there. But we sometimes in the back of our mind, we're like, nah, He can't. Nah, it's just too much. Like, I don't know if I'm gonna make it through. We have doubt.
Mhm,
Um, one of my favorite stories, I have to bring this up, but one of my favorite stories that really shows like how God has you on his side
mhm.
is where King David, everybody loved King David. So,
Yeah.
that's I got the name, but I ain't no king yet. I'm waiting for
Yeah,
the title. I'm the prince right now.
there you go.
Yeah, once I get married, then the king is back. You know
There
what
you
I'm saying?
go.
But one thing that I really like is that when King David, he killed Goliath, he's so happy. He knew he was gonna be king. Saul transfer his power to David, but Saul had so much anger and so much jealousy. I don't know if he had like I honestly think he had maybe some type of syndrome. I don't know what, maybe bipolar, because
Hmm.
any moment he saw King David alone, he was ready to take him out.
Yeah.
And he was planning to take him out. But here's the thing that's wild. Every time King David played the harp in front of Saul, it stopped him from wanting to commit those evil acts.
Mhm.
And you can see how music is so powerful. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And God was protecting David. He's,
Yes, he was.
you
Mhm.
feel what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. Jealousy is something else. I think knowing the same story, um, I just think that jealousy can really overtake you, and that's a lesson that we learn from Saul and David. Uh, and I think, when God revealed to Saul who David really was, he's like, well, wait a minute, I'm the king. He got a little beside himself, and jealousy just took over. And I just think, as gracious as David was all throughout those times, and he said he was right next to him. He had a piece of his robe and he cut it off. He had a piece of his beard and he cut it. I'm like, this man could have taken his life so many times, and he chose not to because of God's grace, and his was God's anointed. So he's like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to have, that fall back on me for me, just because I'm afraid. God is in control. And that's part of the reason that I think we've been able to do what we have. We have to remember that God is in control, period, over everything. Whether we believe it, like it, accept it, it is. God is totally in control. And when we try to figure it out, he's already worked it out. So
No, it's true. It's so true. Um, but yeah, Michelle, I'm really happy, like I said, for you sharing your wisdom, your stories. To us, it means a lot. And
thank you.
of course. It looks like Zoom about to kick me out, but I'm gonna wrap it up, guys. This
Okay.
is the Outlet to Reality, the hottest podcast in Vegas and Chicago every Tuesday. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Ching! Y'all know where to find me. I'm on Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, the Outlet to Reality. My Snapchat's Take More Pass It, and my TikTok is at Yaakov28. And Michelle, where can my fans find you?
105.7 uh Flight Radio every Tuesday evening at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. My book is called I Remember by Michell D. Griggs. You can find it on Amazon. And that's pretty much it right now.